Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Too Right
Damn right.
with Stephen Barrett, the barrister, and Annunciata Rees Mogg, the political commentator. You laughing at me already, Annunciata, because they've got on Mike Graham's show. They've got a nickname for me now, which is that I'm the Barrettster. That's their nickname. So it's all
Yeah,
just.
yeah, yeah.
And I was on it today. I was on it at ridiculous o'clock this morning, which was very painful. But so I'm just gonna, I'm just gonna get mixed up with my words. But are you well?
I am very well, and maybe I'm getting my own back because last week you said my name auto-corrected to opinionated or opinionata or something. So this week I'm your Barrettster.
Opinionata Rees Mogg? Surely not. Um, well, exactly. And I mean, I'm middle aged now, and I spend half of my time asking for the doodah or the what's it or the hajima thing. I can't remember words and names. Are just
The best words in the English language. The hujama flip.
yeah,
Love it.
the hujima flip. Yeah, that just we need to.
Yeah.
There are limits. We're not all perfect. It's like on Twitter. I get obsessed with people. There are people who will delete posts and reposts because they've made one tiny little typo. It's like typos are not law. Okay, there's no law of spelling. There is no act of parliament about how we spell words. The dictionary is not binding. It's optional. As long as we can tell what you mean, don't worry about it. And I do typos all the time because I've got massive bloody thumbs and a tiny little phone. So I'm just doing it all the time. But we need to be more forgiving. I do think this is part of the age that we live in, where we've been so inured in Alistair Campbell's view of the world, in Tony Blair's view of the world, that all that matters is appearance. We must have the perfect appearance. We must have not a hair out of place. We can't have a wrinkle we can't. And it's just like, this is just not a healthy way to live. And it's a waste of time. But yeah, your view on that?
There is the whole Instagram generation where everything is about image and how you are perceived by others. But then there's also quite a lot of grammar Nazis, as they get called. And I'm not saying that they are akin to Hitler, but that they are quite feisty. If you get a small mistake, you can have them on your back, and it's just a bit irritating. I did a tweet this week and it said, I have see blah, blah, blah. Obviously, it meant to say I have seen, but I wasn't going to delete it
No.
and start again. It did get left and it got a few thousand views or whatever, and tough. If people think I don't know the past tense of the verb to see, fine by me.
Well, yeah. I mean, to be honest, I also have this view that your tweet's not going to go viral unless it's got a typo. I think you actually have to have a typo in it in order for any tweet to go viral. So I don't have a problem with it. The one thing that irritates me on Twitter is because I quote tweet a lot. Because I think I'm very reactive. I don't really have a lot of sort of primary views. So I'm more reacting to stuff. And if I quote tweet somebody and then they edit it in order to correct a typo, it kills views. That's it. It's dead. I may as well delete my own quote tweet. It's dead now. It's dead. It's just dead.
Totally.
And that irritates me a lot. But talking of Twitter and social media and the media, I think we need to talk about the difference between this idea of perception and reality, because Keir Starmer is trying to create a perception in which he is not engaging in war or aggression against Iran. And that is bumping headfirst into reality, because as you will well know, not only have we been shot at and attacked by Iran multiple times already, not only were they more than willing to carry out terrorist atrocities on our soil, they shot at us again today. And they sent a drone to one of our oil companies and they blew the thing up. And Keir Starmer is allowing Donald Trump to use the bases, and Keir Starmer is deploying 1,000 armed forces personnel to the region, and we have sent a ship, and we have sent aircraft, and we have sent helicopters, and we have sent drones. this is the biggest sort of mind mess I've ever lived through. Half of Twitter thinks not only that we're not involved in the war in Iran, but that Keir Starmer is good because he's not involved in the war in Iran. Half of Twitter thinks Keir Starmer is a complete waste of time and a complete melt and a weakling and a traitor because we're not involved in the war in Iran. And we're involved in the war in Iran. It's just absurd. I mean, I don't know how we square that circle, but I need
Well,
your
you,
views on
you,
Iran is attacking us.
you blamed it on Alistair Campbell and the whole spin malarkey that started in the late 90s. I actually think that all of this is more like their Prince Harry world, that everyone's got their own truth. And your own truth bears no resemblance necessarily to the truth or anyone else's truth because it belongs to you. And it's just how you want things to be or want things to seem. And Keir Starmer is turning into Prince Harry. He's telling us his truth. His truth is he would much rather not be doing anything, but that in the realpolitik, he has to. And he has to for the British people, and he has to for the whole world. And yet he doesn't want us to realise he is, because most of his party are very anti war. They, after all, did get their fingers quite badly burnt after the 45-minute reason for going to war with Iraq
Well, they
back
they they
under Tony
engaged.
Blair.
Let's just flag this, Annunziata. They engaged in a genuinely illegal war. And now they're trying to pretend that, but the Iran war is not illegal because it's perfectly lawful to defend yourself, and they're shooting at us.
And they're shooting at our bases, they're shooting at our companies, they're shooting at our residents in third countries. It is, I think, clearly justified. And then a lot of people don't buy into the whole just war theory. But if you think you will save more lives than you cost, if you will cause less damage than would happen if you did not act, war is actually always justified. And I think that's a very reasonable argument in this case and does justify it regardless of international law. And I think international law does sometimes have its problems. That some of the people on the international courts are not countries whose rules you would want to abide by.
No, they're not.
They are not impartial people who necessarily think like us, or us in the broader sense as a nation. They don't have our nation's best interests at heart. So I think there are problems with international law anyway. But even on the just straight moral grounds, when you've got people undertaking terrorist atrocities or trying to, and so far being stopped, but that is never a guarantee. As Margaret Thatcher said, we've got to get lucky every single day. They've got to get lucky once. And so we've got to try and prevent atrocities happening on our soil. But the interests of the British people are not having a nuclear power. And I think there's no question that's where they want to head. How far down that road is up for debate. But they certainly want to be a nuclear power, controlling the whole of the Middle East, and with the ability to ultimately strike countries in Europe and outside their own region. Whilst Cyprus and our base in Erbil and the people that have become expats in Dubai and so on and so forth are being attacked, we have a moral obligation to prevent that happening. And the only way you can prevent it is stopping the drones as they land, but making sure they can't be set off in the first place.
Yeah, and so self-defense is a noble virtue, and we seem to have allowed them to convince us to forget this. If there's a problem that we have, because we this whole podcast is because we are both of the right, and let's talk about the failures of the right. And one of our major failings is that we often we interpret the other side as trying to be fair, trying to be reasonable. They want a reasonable, application of rules. They want consistency. They're just a bit confused, and that is the standard right winger response. It's very people who aren't right wing don't need to know that right wing is very. We don't automatically go, or you're Satan because you disagree with me. It's much more likely to go, well, I think I can understand where you're coming from a little bit, and I imagine that you're trying to get to the good place. Let me just work you through this. And with the good left, and I like to flag up the good left. That is true. That is absolutely true. And we disagree over details, and sometimes they might be right, and sometimes we might be right, and that's fine. That's a very healthy system. This modern so-called progressive, I would call it narcissistic, modern narrative obsessed, appearance obsessed left. I genuinely now no longer believe that they are even trying to have a consistent or fair approach to anything. I think Keir Starmer he's literally gone, my voter base want me to not be at war with Iran, so I'm going to lie and pretend I'm not at war with Iran. I'm going to put British citizens and British sovereign territory in danger, and I'm going to let the Americans do what they want to do anyway, because actually, if it's too big, I'll get found out. So he's sort of allowing them to do enough, and then I'll just spin it. And for non-lawyers, I really want to explain that the essence of that spin. The most irritating point for me is the idea that we're only attacking Iran defensively. It's like, Annunziata, if you punched me and you say, I'm only punching you defensively, like, I'm still being punched, okay? What part of this am I supposed to go, well, okay then? I mean, it's just absurd. And Iran is attacking us. So what you're doing, you're just punching back. Tell me in a boxing match, which boxer is punching defensively and which one is punching aggressively? Tell me. Just tell me. Because the argument you can say is
generally the one losing. The one losing is the one punching defensively is my take on boxing. Not that I'm a great fan. But the best form of defense is attack. And we are in that situation. And that is the reality. Keir Starmer can have his own truth, and he can try and flog it to, like a dead horse, to his voter base, who I'm not sure do believe him, actually. I don't know that he really has a voter base anymore. I think there's the really hard left who he wants to vote for him. But in fact, they're all voting for Green and Sultana and whoever else, and have lost interest. Fruit and Nut. Have lost interest. We'll get in trouble for saying that. Didn't she try and sue someone for?
Yeah. Come on, Opinionata. The one useful thing you've got here is me. People don't send me threatening letters because they know it's not going to get anywhere. I mean, there's not a tweet I've
said. You
said.
can call me Opinionata. I can call her Sultana. I mean,
exactly. You can't sue me. Exactly. You can't sue me for that. She can't sue me either. And I offer every single tweet I've ever sent is sent with the view of the threat of being sued, because that's how paranoid I am. And in the words of me and my mentor mate who's in your party, if you're not paranoid, we usually swear, but let's just say bad at litigation. And I'm not bad at litigation, so I'm paranoid. And so just don't you worry about Fruit and Nut. That is just not getting anywhere. In fact, if anything, one of the ironies of defamation law, Annunziata, is that pure vulgar abuse is not defamatory. So we're almost encouraged to be more vulgar. So I deliberately swore, because I get very upset about various things like killing babies, and there are certain things I can't deal with. So it's just like, do you know what? I'm just going to be vulgarly abusive to a Lib Dem MP. He's not going to be able to sue me because it's pure vulgar abuse. I called him certain words I won't use on this, but let's talk about vulgarity, and let's talk about, just because my moral compass. I mean, I've been outraged today, and we've not talked about this. People who watch us need to know that we don't prep. That's just not in our style. No. We are not a polished product. We are original and raw. And I don't know if you've seen it, but Baroness Aisha Hazarika, she joked about the victims of rape gangs on Times Radio today. She laughed at them. Working class,
Yeah.
largely predominantly white girls. Initially, there were a lot of Sikh victims, but once the Sikh community rightly stood up for itself, good on you, Sikhs, they switched to being white, the white community. And it's not that the white community didn't try and fight back. It's just that the state and the police oppressed them, arresting the dad of one of the girls who tried to protect the girl, and not arresting the bad
Yeah.
people. But
Unbelievable.
Aisha Hazarika joked about this. She Keir Starmer made her a member of the House of Lords. She has a slot to permanent job on Times Radio, and she laughs at the victims of rape gangs, the children who are victims of gang rape. What are we as a country? What are we?
I can't bear it when every time Mandelson is mentioned, Keir Starmer says we must remember the victims. Our thoughts are with the victims. But in the child rape gang cases, it's got to be true that these are innocent young lives who have been ruined, in many cases completely ruined, by the actions of coordinated gangs of fully grown men. It is disgusting. We know so far that there are at least 4,000 or 5,000, but we've got no real idea how many there are in total. In some years, there are over 1,000 reports. I think in the most recent that I could see figures for, it's 700 new victims in 2023. That's long after we knew about this. We knew it was going on, and it was still allowed to continue. And the betrayal of the British state at every level of these children is disgusting. To find that funny, to find it worthy of ridicule, I find disgusting. However, back to what we're allowed to say and what we're not allowed to say, I do believe in freedom of speech, and freedom of speech trumps niceties. It trumps human decency. It trumps how anyone else feels about what you say. However,
Really
I don't think I don't think that her employers should find it acceptable, and I think that should be up to them. And I don't see that as a freedom of speech thing. I see that as them putting their financial case first and foremost. And if viewers don't listen to her, she should be fired.
Yes. Well, I mean, the oddest thing about the Times Radio and the Times in general is the way that it slipped into being the mouthpiece of Labour at precisely the time when Labour is the least popular it's ever been. I mean, I don't understand the financial case alone for it, let alone the politics. And Rupert Murdoch used to be a canny old bird, and he would always, to my mind, wait until you could tell who was going to win the next general election, and then endorse them in the Sun, because then he could claim it was the Sun what won it. And I have no problem with that at all. I think that's quite clever. But for the Times to be still Labour, I don't understand at all. But for Aisha Hazarika to have faced no comeback to this, because the Times Radio is part of News Corp, and News Corp has a big HR department, and it deals with all of the layers of it. The amount of people who've been sacked from talk radio for far less than this. I mean, if she's not sacked, this really will be absolutely outrageous.
Yeah.
But the other one I'd really like to press on is that the point about the House of Lords is that it is noble, and therefore members of the House of Lords have to be noble. And if you make sick jokes about child victims of rape gangs, you are, to my mind, not noble. There must be a fit and proper person test.
I think we lose probably half the House of Lords.
That was said with slow drama because of your internet connection.
I don't know that I do agree with that. I think we want actual people, and actual people do make mistakes.
I think this is interesting. I can hear you.
I
think it's interesting. I mean, it's like
Humans are. And actually, I think this is one of the things that the left
Well, who knows what Annunciata truly thinks.
fail to understand is basic human nature. That all humans make mistakes. All humans have stupid thoughts in their heads at some times. All humans are capable of doing moronic or bad things. Humans are also capable about saying a very big apology to the victims, to the victims' families, and really to the country, because it's so insulting to everyone.
It is deeply insulting, and I'm with you from a Christian perspective, although I'd be interested in your view on this, given that you are Roman Catholic and I am Church of England, in that I think the standard C of E line is that you don't offer forgiveness until somebody admits the wrong and asks for it. Whereas, and I don't want to parody or pretend to understand the Roman position, because I don't understand the Roman Church. I'm not of it, but you've got confession, which is different. Do you have to admit that you did something wrong in
Oh
confession?
yeah, you have to turn up and you have to say, it's however long since my last confession. I have sinned in the following ways. And you have to list them. You can only get absolution if you admit them.
So that's admit that it's a very similar situation. So
Yeah.
if Aisha Hazarika says, "I'm terribly upset if anybody was offended by what I said," which is like a politician's sort of non-answer, that will not be asking
No,
for forgiveness, will it?
no, it's got to be, I am sorry I said it.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to take your own blame.
I still think it's interesting, and I think we'll explore it in future episodes, because you are much more of a free speech absolutist than I am, and I always find that, because that like triggers me. I get like worried. It's like Claire Fox is much more of a free speech absolutist than I am, and I just get worried. It's like, oh dear, a very clever person disagrees with Stephen. Is Stephen wrong? Is the immediate go to in my head? But I think we'll just have to explore that, because I think there is a story now that's going to trigger you, was announced today, because I mean you couldn't make this stuff up. It's April Fool's Day, and
Yeah.
for those who might be watching from outside the United Kingdom, we have a noble tradition on April Fool's Day, the 1st of April, of everybody just making up nonsense stories. So I made up a nonsense one that I was starting up. I because I'm not very smutty, I couldn't even bring to be smutty in my made up joke. But I just said I was starting up an intimate subscription, that was for only mams, because I'm very popular with ladies of a certain age. But we all, the noble and great British tradition of just making stuff up today. Keir Starmer announced he's going to do a press conference. So I think half of us just went, "Oh, good one, Keir. Yeah, yeah, yeah."
Yeah.
But
I'm going
when
to address the nation. Well, that's
yeah,
a funny one.
I mean, he irritated the lobby and quite a few journalists, because he didn't really announce anything. But the only thing that really came out of it was the idea that he's going to sit down with the EU and agree to give them even more of our stuff. And basically, Annunciata, this is membership by the back door, isn't it?
It's membership by the back door. We will pay for the benefit. We will lose our freedoms and probably have to renegotiate trade deals that we've already signed with third countries, which have been very beneficial to us. He also lied about the state of our economy. And if you look at, for example, our trade with the EU, I think it's about 30% higher than it was in 2015 before Brexit. It's been going up incrementally in more recent years as well. He is just not telling us the truth. The problem with our economy is not leaving the EU. It's that we've got him and Rachel Reeves running it and absolutely destroying our competitiveness on the world stage and our ability to function at home. We've got Ed Miliband destroying us with high energy prices so that companies can't thrive and survive, and people can't afford to heat their homes. The, the EU always was a fantastic way of British politicians being able to say, not my fault, governor. The EU may got to go back in. And to me, one of the greatest reasons to
See, I knew she'd go off on a rant on this. I'm very glad that she did. But your internet reception is just terrible. I've warned her, but it's terrible. But so you're just
is
stuttering.
that we actually could see.
Love that laugh.
Dude, we need a tech person in our lives.
We do
Stephen.
need a tech, and we'll get a tech person. I just think it adds to the honesty. But as I have no, but I've never had a public position on Brexit. Not least of all because it was like 10 years ago, and at the time I was a single dad to a 1-year-old baby. So you can all go boil your heads. I was looking after a child. You were gallivanting around having fun. I had duty, but I don't think I'll be neutral if there was a rejoin argument or an attempt at a rejoin argument, because I think there is no rejoin argument. I think there are very cogent arguments for not leaving and not rocking the boat and not causing issues, and therefore remaining. But I really don't see the rejoin argument, particularly with the EU and the state it's in. And I wonder if viewers know that even the EU itself knows that it's in a terrible state. And Mario Draghi, because I'm not very polarized on the EU, I read a lot of EU stuff, and he's done a brilliant report on the state of the EU, and he's admitted all of its failings. And if the EU is to succeed, it has to listen to Mario Draghi. It's that simple. To my mind, it just has to. If you don't listen to Mario Draghi, you're going to fail. We have exactly the same flavor problem, but we're not solving it either. We're also not listening to Mario Draghi. We don't seem to have a Mario Draghi figure, although I'd argue that was Nigel Farage, but that will probably trigger you. But we we both suffer the same problem. We have too many laws which are strangling our economy, too many taxes which are strangling our economies. This is not rocket science, folks. It doesn't really matter whether for us to rejoin. I would be against, because I think the EU, to test our commitment, would quite rightly say things like, "Well, you have to join the euro," and I'd get that. If I were the EU, I'd say that. I would say you have to join the euro because I don't trust that you won't leave us again. And I fully understand that position, and I just don't want to be in the euro. We can still be a loyal friend, but what's going on with Starmer and this betrayal is even worse. Now you can fire guns at Starmer. If you've got
where rejoining is not rejoining, and he's trying to sneak it past the British people, and I think he's a fool, because I think the British people are cleverer than Starmer when it comes to how their own lives are run. And he is trying to pull the wool over our eyes. He has done it on so many issues, but this would be by far the costliest.
Yeah, it will. And he's hemorrhaging money. Oh, by the way, you'll love this. We're giving more hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds more to France because they're being so effective at stopping the boats.
I know. We're paying, what is it? Something like 2 million a week for patrols. Well, they haven't stopped any really so far. We've got this wonderful 1 in, 1 out deal with them. Well, 1 + 1 - 1 is the same. You've got the same number. It's a complete fallacy that it was ever going to reduce numbers at all. And in fact, we've agreed to take more than we've even sent back. And we pay the French for that too. It is moronic. The French are not playing fairly. They are quite happily taking British taxpayers' money. And
I don't blame them for that. I don't. I mean,
today.
Like,
no, I think the French should look after the French. Yeah.
I mean, give me £1 billion and I won't stop the boats either. If I tell you what, I'll do it for 900 million. That's my final offer. And the Isle of Wight, because Keir Starmer will probably give me that.
The French's job is to look after the French. Of course it is. And they're doing that pretty well. It's not their job to look after us. They probably should stick to agreements they make, which they clearly don't. I think there were a few weeks where they slashed some boats halfway up the rivers before they got to the sea, and that did actually have a small impact, but they gave up on it very quickly because I think they thought the money might dry out if the people stopped coming. But Keir Starmer buys this rubbish. He is, for some obscure reason, absolutely obsessed with the European leaders and the EU leadership. Him and von der Leyen are, I think in a one-way romance where he thinks the sun shines out of her proverbial. But in fact, they're taking him down a blind alley to take more money from us and to stop us being the competitor we are to them. And if you look at even the city, the square mile, which told us at Brexit that hundreds of thousands of jobs would go, companies would move en masse to Frankfurt and Paris. The city of London was not going to exist as a world entity anymore. And the complete opposite has happened. And even the city has now said, please don't make us rejoin. The freedoms we've got to trade internationally since Brexit are the reason that the city is doing well. And that is our biggest market sector in this country. I
It
think we
is.
should listen.
It is. I mean, I was a banking and financial services lawyer. I still am in a slightly more boring way now, but it is our most important sector. And I knew, the market knew, we all knew, although they were publicly pro Remain, even if I was publicly just not paying attention. They all knew that nobody was going to Frankfurt. No, nobody's going. It was just not going. Nobody's going. And this is going to sound ridiculously sexist, but literally all the male bankers were like, I mean, I would, but my wife would never. She would never agree to it because there's nothing to do in Frankfurt, and people don't understand. When human beings remove the human from them and they become this sort of hypothetical, theoretical creature, it's like, okay, you move to Frankfurt, right? Where are you having dinner? Okay, maybe they've got a nice restaurant. Yeah. Next day after.
Yeah.
Day after, and it's like, oh right, in a week I've run through all of Frankfurt's nice restaurants. I now have nowhere for my because these people work ridiculously hard. I never get. They earn far more than I've ever had, but I never get envious because they do work like Billio, but they therefore expect to have nice things, and because if you've only got a very short, and that makes perfect sense to me, but Frankfurt cannot give them that. It just can't. I also don't think that continental Europe, unless it listens to Mario Draghi, and I'm a massive Mario Draghi fan, and I encourage people to go away and literally Google Mario Draghi EU report and read it. And if you believe in the EU, you definitely want that implemented. And if you don't believe in the EU, you should still understand his arguments and what he's saying, because he's a very clever man, very clever mind, absolutely on point. But the continental Europe is not going to listen to him realistically, or certainly not fast enough. So the future, to my mind, Annunziata, lies in the Abraham Accords. If this Iran war actually ends with the regime change, we will end up with Iran, the Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar now have turned into goodies. I mean, well done switching sides at the right minute, chaps. But Lebanon will be free, and Syria will still, the Israelis will still work on it. God bless the Israelis. But we will end up with it and if Egypt has the nous to join, we will end up with a far more important economic bloc, which is full of vibrancy and energy, full of young people. You only need to look at demographics, really. One of the problems with trying to get a demographic, economic boom in continental Europe is that there's loads of old people and none of the young people. All the young people have been imported illegally and have no skills. So, that is a far more exciting prospect for us as a country. It just is. There's so much more we can do, and it's just a short hop away.
Just look hours. At the speed of growth of the Pacific nations. Look at the Southeast Asian ones. Look at Canada, Australia, New Zealand. America's got the highest growth in the G7. Why are we dragging ourselves down with really sclerotic, failing economies whose share of world trade has diminished year on year on year for 30 years? Yeah. It's extraordinary.
It is extraordinary. I mean, I still wish them well, and I wish they'd listen to Mario Draghi. And the other thing that they need to do is to access their energy reserves, because you know we can talk a lot about economies and economics, and one of the reasons I don't spend a lot of my time reading complicated economic theory is because the only real lifeblood of an economy is energy. It's that simple. You know, the what how did Britain suddenly get rich and govern half the world? Because we had energy, we had coal, and they didn't.
And trade. Um,
Yeah.
and trade and trade actually comes back to your profession, that you've got to have reliable, consistent legal frameworks for trade to take place.
Well,
And
that
what we're
can I flag up the kindness that you've just done me? Because I was once lectured by a lefty criminal and human rights barrister that I was wasting my life in civil law, which is my branch of law. We make economies work. And I wasn't important because I wasn't getting, a murderer off death row. I wasn't getting some
it,
immigrant to the permission to get benefits. I'm not achieving for justice. And it's like I got so offended I didn't really bother engaging, but I went home fuming that night. I just thought, we keep the economy going.
yeah,
We mean that businessmen can trust their contracts. That it's so vital.
exactly. So vital. Genuine property ownership, having meaning and owning your own property, whether that's a house or whether that's a piece of paper representing a share, right the way through all of contract law, is why Britain has become what it is, because we could trade in a way other countries couldn't, because they would betray their own contracts. And then no one wants to trade with you, funnily enough, because that's basically just robbery.
Yeah, but I'm so. Oh, this is why we get on, because I'm just so glad that you recognise that, because I tried to argue it, but I was literally just so you know, about 15 years ago, to my face, I was lectured about why was I wasting my time as a lawyer, not doing, and it's just like, just go away, and I mean, this comes back to, don't know if you've ever seen it happen to me on Twitter, but I feel like it happens a lot. Like some non-lawyer who doesn't like me or is probably a lefty gets very agitated and is like, "You're not even a criminal barrister." It's like, no, because I don't want to be one, and I'm very proud to be one. And I don't mean to insult criminal barristers. There are many I like, but I don't want to be one, and I'm proud of the type of lawyer I am. How many criminal barristers have
As you
bothered?
should be.
Thank you. Well, this is why we get on. So the last story that so you sent me a story. So I said we're not preparing, but you look at you. You practice beforehand and ruin the fun. You sent me a story from your Twitter about what you saw. I'm loading it up now. I can't see it. Just explain it to me. About a man, two men run out of Sainsbury's with a basket of food. Tell me about that.
Yeah. On Monday, I went to our local small market town that has a small, medium-sized Sainsbury's in it. It's only got a population of about 2,500. It's not a big place. It's a rural backwater that has its own charms. And I was at the till and paying, and actually joked, "Oh, I better scan that. I wouldn't want to walk out with it by mistake." As two men did just that. And they had a shopping basket absolutely overflowing with, I didn't see what was in it. I would assume they'd gone for higher end items. I did notice that the steak I was buying had a great big huge yellow clip on it that had to be removed by a member of staff. They went bleep, 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 bleep as they ran out. Two of the workers in Sainsbury's did run after them and were just so wonderful in their sanity of not really trying to chase too hard and getting themselves into trouble, but running out saying, "Excuse me, excuse me." It was the most beautifully British English moment of politeness in the face of thuggery. And what the one man holding the basket ran pretty fast, and the other man ran backwards laughing at them, just to add insult to injury, which was just revolting. Someone else who was at another till said, I know where they're parked. I just saw them get out of their car at this other shop just up the road. They weren't in the Sainsbury's car park. And that just annoys me that you kind of know nothing much is going to be followed up on. One of them had a work zip up top on that clearly displayed the name of the company he worked for. He could have stolen that as well. I can't say that's definitive proof, but it's certainly something worth investigating. But the police don't take these things particularly seriously. And even if they did, the sentences aren't there to be any real deterrent. So we all know that on our shopping bills will go their shopping. Will go every copycat's shopping. Will all these do-gooders who a few weeks ago were stealing food to hand out to food banks, all their bills will go on our shopping. They're sort of justifying stealing food. And it isn't justified. It just costs everyone else more, whether it's in security guards, security measures, or just the loss of the value of the food. And it comes to billions every year.
It
That's
does.
impacting our whole economy.
It does.
I think it's about three billion a year, four if you include security guards. That all goes on every single person's shopping bill. So the people who are actually struggling are having to pay more because these freeloaders take whatever they want and know they'll get away with it. And we've then seen it in this was all very calm, no violence was had in our nice rural town. But then, of course, you've seen these sort of, I think they're calling them the Easter riots in Clapham, in Birmingham, of bored teenagers. One of the reports I saw described them as bored teenagers in the Easter holidays with not enough to do.
I was a bored
Well,
teenager. I
I
didn't
was
do
a
anything.
bored teenager and I didn't go on a riot. Everyone's been a bored teenager if they're old enough to have ever been a teenager. It doesn't give you an excuse, a reason to go and riot in the streets, to steal goods. In the Clapham riots, I think 6 girls have been arrested. 2 of them were 13 and they were arrested for assaulting an emergency worker, a paramedic, I think. You have got to ask, where are the parents? Who are the parents, and why are they not bringing up their children to know that that could never be the right thing to do?
Yes, I mean, my child is very unlikely to assault an emergency worker, and I say that with some deep confidence because I raised my child as a as a single father. The child is a product of a broken home. You know, this is nonetheless, it is, these are choices people make. But to my mind, this is all structural. It's all societal. It's all inevitable. I'm afraid, Annunziata, that this is not. I don't believe we are here accidentally. Now, that's not to be a conspiracy theorist and say that somebody deliberately planned us to get here. But
Mm.
I think we put systems in place that would inevitably create this. The minute that you remove dads in particular, or you undermine or you underplay the importance of dads, because don't get me wrong, in many households, and I know some kick-ass women, not least of all including you, but you know, I know some, and there are some female judges who I would be scared of, you know, well beyond. So you know, nothing's ever 100% true, but in a majority of households, it's dad is the threat, dad is the rule. You know, if
It's probably the opposite in mine.
yeah, I can imagine.
And indeed was in my own childhood that my father was a very mild-mannered and easygoing man who, if you said, "Can I have another chocolate bar?" or "Can I go out until 10 o'clock at night?" would always say, "Oh, as long as you're sensible, dear." And my mother would say, "Don't be so ridiculous. It's a school night. Get back to your homework." And I think, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, I've fallen into the same pattern. But it's certainly true that children do need male figures in their lives.
Well, they need
Um,
boundaries. If the woman's happy
and
to
they
do it, that's fine.
and they need boundaries. I think seeing that it was so far 6 people have been arrested in Clapham, they're all girls.
Ugh.
So that's not the normal excuse that it's teenage boys without a male figure, with a mother who can't discipline them because they're twice their size. It's not that. It is
No, but
some other.
I'm quite interested in this gender thing, because actually, if you look at Southeast Asian tiger mums, if you look at Nigerian mums, they really are the discipline setters. So maybe I do have a bit of an antediluvian view on this. It's not men or dads necessarily, although dads do it, and in my family, you know, I am the rules. But this is why, you know, my child got uh chicken pox, and we were just zonked out on the couch, and Small was 8, and Small just said to me, "I remember the last time you told me off," and I was like, "I bet you don't." And then Small explained the scenario, and I was like, "Oh, you do remember the last time I told you off? The last time I told Small Person off, Small Person was 3.5 years old." But
Wow.
we have very fit. We have
You need
no
rules.
arbitrary rules.
Yeah, absolutely. Consistent.
Yep, clear
Children,
rules. Yep.
children need to know where they stand. They do need routine, which is frightfully unpopular, unfashionable at any rate.
Is it
Um,
unfashionable? Because I've basically got OCD, so is routine unfashionable?
oh no, because it's all now about child-led parenting.
Yeah, but
So
that was
your
mad. I did baby-led weaning, and that was the worst thing I've ever done in my
yes, that
life.
was foolish. No, no, no. There are far too many children in my family for me to have fallen into that trap. I think my mother's got 17 grandchildren, so mine are the youngest grouping. I'd seen how well baby-led weaning can go, but the child-led rearing means they get to say when they go to bed, they get to say how long they're on their phone, they get to say everything about their life. And I think children should make decisions. That I'm very keen my children decide what they're going to wear, that they can express some individuality, they can learn about choosing the right clothes for the right circumstances. So the other day, about 6 weeks ago, I said to my now 8-year-old, we're going to go outside for a nice walk. So put something warm on, and she appeared in shorts. And I did draw the line at that because I knew that within 10 minutes she would be absolutely miserable in 2-degree weather.
Yeah.
But having some autonomy is very important. But having a set of rules within which you all live, knowing where those boundaries are, having the security that provides, having the certainty that, you know, things will happen. If you say something's going to happen, make sure it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Don't give them fairy tales that you can't fulfill, but giving them a reliable base. But within that, a moral structure. You don't lie. You don't steal. You don't hit other children. Those things will be punished. And they don't do them because they know those are things you don't do.
Well, I think
So no,
I think this is the secret to restoring a good country. I really do, because, you know, it's like we have a rape gang problem, and that has to be dealt with, and people need to be punished. But we're not going to fix the country, to my mind, by starting at stopping rape gangs. We have to start way before this, way before. We have to go absolutely back to discipline in schools. And what's really interesting is that Catherine Bevel Singh, I think, is from your party, and is happy to be vaguely right, although she's non-party political, but vaguely right. But there's also a great lefty who's what I would call of the proper left. I think he's called Tom Bennett. I may be doing him a disservice, but he's another head teacher who believes in discipline and rules. And the idea that actually we're going to solve society. And what maybe one of the great problems of our society right now is that people have pretended that rules are somehow right wing. Like, it's
Yeah.
true that right wingers still believe in rules. But believe me, back in the day, lefties and Labour used to believe in rules too. Because actually, rules help you structure your society. They help you
Yeah.
know what's right and wrong. And what we've done is live through, and what we're living through right now is the breakdown of rules, because police officers don't feel able to enforce a simple rule because they're not sure what it is. Everybody's not sure what the rule is. And oh, what does the European Court of Human Rights think? And what did it think yesterday? And what does it think tomorrow? Who knows? And we're living through this chaos of rules. And it's just an absolute head. I would say a demotic Anglo-Saxon word, but I'm not going to say that. But it's a head mess. It's a head mess. We are all messed with, and it comes down to me, Annunziata. It comes down to the concept, and I'm sure you've never done this. If you send out formal party invitations, and then you put on dress code, smart casual, you're actually engaging in psychological torture. That is cruel. That is just cruel. What the hell is smart casual? What the hell is it? Tell me, because I'm a man, so men in particular are pretty easy, and you know what my wardrobe upstairs is going to be like. If you tell me to wear a suit, I'll wear a suit. You tell me to wear black tie, I'll wear black tie. Tell me to wear morning dress, I'll wear morning dress. Tell me to wear white tie, I'll wear white tie. I know what I have them, or I can wear them, and that's what I can do. You tell me smart casual. I mean, I sort of rebel a bit because I keep having holes. I'm not sure where the hole is in this one, but I keep.
Oh yeah, it's there.
Yeah, just rebelling. I just look like a tramp. It's just easier. Smart casual. You tell me smart casual, and I'll look like a tramp deliberately. Just
I
to fight
actually
back.
I went to a smart casual party last weekend, a dinner for a friend's birthday, and I had no idea what to wear. I do
Of course
agree
you
with you.
don't.
It's a
No one
nightmare.
knows.
And someone was there in basically a full-blown, very over-the-top cocktail dress, and someone else was there in scruffy trousers and a hole in their jumper. I think people feel more comfortable when they understand the rules.
Yeah, clear
And
rules, not
clear
oppressive
rules.
rules, just clear rules.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, but I think it also, with that, it's parents who set rules within their own house. And parents seem to be giving up on more and more. And I think there is a real question about how much the state involvement in our life, the nanny state, for want of a better word, has undermined parenting so that parents no longer feel they can or should parent themselves, parent their own children themselves. That when, Keir Starmer before the election was saying at schools we're going to teach children to brush their teeth.
Oh,
We've got to have breakfast clubs because parents can't feed their own children.
go boil your fat head, mate.
5-year-olds are being potty trained at school. Now, those are clear parenting fails, but I think the core of the problem goes back to the state incrementally over the last couple of generations taking on more and more of the role, and that makes parents say, why should I do it? They're going to do it.
But that is
And
socialism, Annunziata.
adults,
That's what it is.
exactly, so it does come back to socialism, and it's exactly the same with adults who don't take responsibility for their own actions, because you can always pass the buck, as Keir Starmer is showing so frequently, to someone else. No one ever takes the blame for themselves, and actually you do have to. We need to have responsible citizens, but if you're going to be responsible, you also do have to have autonomy and choice, and in fact being smothered by nanny state takes that away.
Well, it is. I always say that, the difference between a free and decent person, and by the way, the free and decent person might be right wing and left wing, and a socialist and I don't consider socialists to be a decent person, is that you walk past a piece of litter, and the decent person will pick it up and put it in the bin. That's what we do. That's what we all do. Was a politician in your party. I was out campaigning with them several years ago, and I just clocked a piece of litter. And it was only like 2 meters away from a bin. So it's like, I'll definitely, when I get there, that's just easy. And the politician, the MP, was in front of me, and the MP did it before I even got to the litter. And that, because that's what you do. That and I would consider old school Labour people would do that too, without hesitation. But a socialist walks past it and goes, "Oh, why haven't the council they haven't done enough. Well, they need to get more litter pickers. It's like, no, just pick the bloody thing up.
Absolutely. And I think one of the weird things that psychologists use to test this is shopping trolleys. And some places you have to put in your pound and you get your pound back. Other places it's free. And psychologists look at who it is who takes their trolley back and who just leaves it in the middle of the car park. And it is a very good example of how society works when you know that you have responsibility and expectations on you, and it doesn't when it's a free-for-all. And the same is true for bringing up children.
Well, so you grew up upper class, but I grew up working class, and and nobody believes me because of the ridiculous way I now sound. But I always like to think that I honor my working class ancestry by finishing my pint and then taking the glass and putting it on the bar. And I think that is like that is just it's just what you do. You don't expect some waitress or barman to come around and pick up your pint. You take your pint and you put it back on the bar, and that for me is part of all of this. I mean, we've turned this into quite a cutesy story. It isn't, because at the end of it is complete lawlessness. At the end of it, there will be mass stabbings. If we don't get a grip on Clapham today, in a week's time, in a month's time, there'll be machete fights in Clapham, and then there'll be dead children in Clapham, which none of us wants to see. I mean, that's when they portray us as nasty right wingers who just want to oppress people. It's like, well, hang on a second, I don't want dead children. I don't. I don't think my child's in any danger. So if I was a progressive socialist, I'd just go, you carry on, my child's fine. But I have empathy and care for your child. I don't want to see your child killed. And that is where we're going.
And even at the level it's at, for the families who had to be locked in Marks and Spencer with scared children, you do need society to have an understanding that your right to be obnoxious and thuggish, to say things we object to be offensive, to be violent, to steal, is countered by everyone else's right to live in a peaceful, law-abiding society and to feel safe. And that's why you have to have responsibilities that you don't. The left is all about rights.
At the moment,
every right,
the modern progressive left,
yeah.
It's only about rights. They never do duties. I'd like to see the restoration of our constitution, because we should need to stop talking about victims. Constitutionally, the victim of a crime is the king, and that's why every court case, there's a criminal court case, is brought in the name of His or Her Majesty, because basically you have offended against the entirety of us, and the figurehead of the entirety of us is the king. And so you have offended the king. And if you commit any illegality, any criminality, from the most severe to the minor criminality, it's all brought in the name of the king. And I think, and maybe this is something we can touch on in future episodes, because I'm not convinced, and you've probably met him, being you. I'm not convinced that
No, I haven't.
Have you not? Yeah, probably Godfather or something. Yeah. But the king as a constitutional mechanism isn't working, which is why they're able to say that criminality is about victims and victims' rights. And it's like, it really isn't. And we need to get back to the idea that all criminality harms us. It doesn't matter if I don't own the wall that the graffiti is sprayed on. I have been harmed. We have all been harmed, even though it's not our wall.
Yeah. And we need to get back to broken windows, that we need to tackle the minor crimes to stop it escalating into major crimes. And we need to get back to being a safe society. And the only way we can do that is by enforcing the laws we've got, not by creating lots of new and rather meaningless, ill-thought-out ones that make people go, well, why should I bother with any laws? Because half of them are so stupid that I don't respect them, and break other laws too.
Well, that's come when you have too many laws. Too many laws causes that.
Yeah.
It's they don't
Yes, it
solve
does.
problems, and the we've had so many idiot MPs for so many decades who's just like, oh, I'll ban this, I'll ban that, I'll ban the other thing. It's like, okay, who's
Yeah.
enforcing this ban? Oh, don't know.
I, it's the knee-jerk reaction of politicians every single time something bad happens is we'll tackle that by having a new law, we'll ban this or whatever. And it really doesn't work, because if laws are not respected, they're not worth the paper they're written on. But worse than that, I think they make people disobey perfectly sensible, reasonable laws as well.
Well, then I'm going to tweak your tail because it is the leader of your party, the Conservative Party, who wants to ban mobile phones for under 16-year-olds, smartphones for under
Yeah.
16-year-olds. I mean, just ridiculous. But I'm not going to tweak you too much because we're this is a nice
Uh,
episode.
and I'm sure we can find things you don't agree with your party leader on as well. But I definitely do not agree with the social media bans
Oh,
for under
good. I knew
16.
you wouldn't. I sort of knew you wouldn't. It's just ridiculous. It's just state overreach. Go boil your fat heads.
Yeah.
But the one thing I will leave you with, because Mike Graham dropped it on me, I'd not heard it until this morning. But apparently, in a new dramatic adaptation of Elizabeth I, they're going to make her, and she was a woman. They're going to
Yes.
make her be played by a trans. I mean, they want to say trans woman, but I actually find that very difficult because a man who suffers from trans delusion should, to my mind, be called a trans man. The fact that his
Yes.
delusion
I
is that
agree
he
with
is a
that.
woman, so I have difficulty with that because
Uh,
I'm OCD. But anyway, they're going to have it played by a man who pretends he's a woman. Go.
of all the parts in the whole of history, I mean, I suppose Cleopatra might be up there, but of women who broke the mold, who genuinely broke through glass ceilings, who stood up not only for themselves but their countries, let alone their gender, and made a real difference. Elizabeth I has got to be very, very high up that list, if not top. And
Yeah,
to
she does.
portray her as a man, to portray her as a man of all people, a man who thinks he's a woman is a man, and that just reeks of misogyny.
Yeah, but that's all this is. It's also it's sort of vaguely homophobic or vaguely against like my lot because it's like we're not. It goes back to the core of the attacks on me, which is that I'm not a real man, right? Well, I tell you I am a real man because if a child is in danger, I will punch the danger in the face until it either stops or I die. If a woman is in danger, I'd give up my life to protect the woman. I'm a real man. You don't get to decide just because of whatever happened, whoever I might fancy or not fancy. You don't get to pick that. That's what
Yeah.
makes me a man. But yeah, it's absolutely outrageous. I
Uh,
hadn't heard until Mike told me.
No, I haven't heard about this, but no trans man has grown up in a school playground being the weak little girl. No trans man has walked down the street and constantly wondered who's behind them because another presence is a physical threat. Women have such different life experiences. One can only begin to imagine, even as a woman, what Elizabeth I's must have been in a world that was entirely, actually, England was one of the few outposts that wasn't as sexist as most, but where it was all about male testosterone, winning on the battlefield, bloody fights, strength,
But
and
she
yet
was as
she made
brave
her
as
way
Churchill.
through it.
She was as brave as Churchill. She stood there in the
Absolutely
face of annihilation. And at Tilbury, she's standing there. They're going to invade. They're probably going to win. That's what people don't get about Churchill and Elizabeth I, is that they're actually staring at
yeah,
probably highly most reasonable commentators would go, yeah, you're gonna lose. This is massive Spain, you're tiny little England, and they're sending their entire bloody fleet at you. And she stood there and she
yeah,
faced that annihilation as Churchill did. And she just said, I may have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart
woman.
and soul. There's this incredible strength, and for that to be taken away from her is obnoxious. That is absolutely obnoxious. So I
And
think,
deeply, deeply sexist.
yeah, Yeah, and you know everybody watching this knows that we don't have any of that nonsense here. If anything, I'm quite scared of Annunciata. But that has been episode 3. So thank you to everybody. Please tune in for episode 4, and we will carry on. Hopefully, at least vaguely entertaining you, which is all the best we can do. Do you want to say something? And then next week you can.
Um, I would like to say next week I hope to have got my internet sorted out, but also don't forget to be too right.
Ah, damn right.